see this a lot as kids, like when we just like become more and more comfortable in our own skin. A lot of us like pack on the makeup when we're young because we like hate the vessel we're in and we hate ourselves. It's not really the vessel that we hate, it's just ourselves that we hate. And as you get older, you become more and more comfortable in your skin, and I do believe it's because you are becoming more authentic and you are healing yourself. You're healing the parts of you that were bullied or were made to feel small or were made to feel insecure. Is that it? Hello, hi, welcome back to the AM with Amy. I'm your lovely host and train wreck, Amylee. And every time I decide to grow my hair long, I immediately regret it because it's so heavy and so thick and it's always in my face and my hair and I feel like a broom. Look at how much hair I have. And this is my hair being thinned out, okay? Okay. Okay. Oh man, it's all lopsided. Before we get started, I wanted to do a trigger warning. I'll probably be talking about a lot of heavy things, from eating disorders to possibly sexual assault. So just putting that out there before we get started. But today we are not dealing with any light topic. We're going to be talking about why I hate myself. By the way, here on the AM with Amy, I sit down and I do my makeup and we unpack a lot of stuff. So right now I'm using the Orsi Cosmetics Skin Perfecting Foundation, and this is specifically designed and targeted towards Asian skin. So I really like it, although the color range is a little bit limiting just because it is founded and made by Asian women. But this is definitely one of my favorite products. Also, I've been breaking out a lot because I've been eating dairy for the first time in a long time. So anyways, this is a topic that I really wanted to talk about just because this is something that I deal with and experience on the daily, and it is greatly what motivates all of the work I do, which is I want everyone to just feel better. So I used to think strength was about saying you love yourself and that you deserve a lot, which is very much so a form of self-love, but there's also an element of inauthenticity to that because all of us struggle with something we don't either we hate about ourselves or something that we don't like about ourselves. And I think that it's such a disservice to our healing and to our potential of possibly becoming even greater and better and more inspiring people when we kind of dismiss that there is a part of us that needs healing. For a long time, I used to think that strength was saying that I never had a bad day, I never hated myself, that I thought I was powerful and empowering and confident and smart and strong. But to me now, strength is vulnerability. Strength is letting people know that you are so incredibly human and so flawed and so wounded, because that is super honest and super authentic. And so now I think that strength comes from screaming at the top of your lungs about how much you hate yourself. And I think there's such a big level of shame to that, and shame is probably the lowest vibration that you can be in, and of course, you know, love and gratitude are the highest, but you can't reach those highest forms of vibrations without acknowledging all of the shame and the guilt and the wound and the wounding. And so self-loathing is something that I deal with all day, every day. It's like why I'm in therapy. It's what motivates me also to be a better person, because I know what it's like to hate yourself, and I know what it's like to want to not be here. I know what it's like to think that you're the worst person on planet Earth, and I am already getting super emotional because if there's anything that I know is that even the people who say that they don't deal with this, they deal with this. They are just more unconscious to it, and they are more dishonest and more afraid to be vulnerable. And that's actually where I used to be. Like, I used to be so terrified of letting people know. Actually, I was even just unconscious to the deep amounts and levels of self-loathing I had within me. And then when I did feel that I did hate myself, it was like so much shame and guilt around that I felt like I couldn't tell anyone that. And so I feel like I used to always pretend to have like this fake confidence. But now to me, confidence is like truly just being honest about how you feel about yourself. The thing I say most is how to love yourself is by always exploring your self-hatred, your self-hate first. That is what I have been doing for the past like 3-4 years, and it is heavy work. It is a lot of heavy unlifting. It is like I need probably like 40 million bulldozers to unpack all of that. So how does self-loathing manifest and like show up? And I think that if you're here in this video, there is at least a part of you that is kind of relating to this or intuitively believes like, I see something about myself that I hate. And I wanna say thank you so much for your honesty and your vulnerability. And if you're watching this and you're like, I don't hate myself, like, but I'm just here to like watch it, I don't know, really try to dissect that, because there's nothing wrong with hating yourself. Everybody hates a part of themselves. Everybody has insecurities. And anyone who says that they don't is actually just struggling deeper and harder because it's repressed and they're not aware of their own trauma and their own identity and their own baggage. And it is almost like a harmful cycle. How does self-loathing show up? Like, how does hating yourself show up? It shows up in a lot of ways. Self-loathing is a product of so many different things, and it shows up in people pleasing and thinking that you're an awful person, so then you constantly do things to get people to like you, which when in fact actually probably makes people like you less. Or self-loathing can be bullying. It's like you are so unkind to yourself and the home that you create in yourself that you go and try to bring that upon others. Self-loathing can manifest in cheating and deception and lying. I feel like for me, and as well as a ton of other women in this beauty and fashion and just social media space, self-loathing really manifests in our appearance and the way we feel about our bodies. For me personally, I have always used my body and my face as just basically my physical vessel as a means of self-loathing. It's like the platform or the modality I choose to self-loathe. I, for a long time, hated my monolids, and that is like why, if you've been following me for a long time, you know that when I used to do AMs with Amy's, I used to draw my eyeliner up to my like eyebrow. It was like a pirate eye, and I only specifically wore oranges and browns, and the makeup was so, first off, the makeup was just bad in general, like the technique, but then also the fact that I only wore one makeup look because I thought that was what suited me and that's what I needed. And I could feel, I think now when I wear eyeliner, it's so scary and like triggering for me, because now when my eyeliner gets thick, just because I keep messing up, I go and get a Q-tip and I take it off, because it reminds me of the days that I had used my eyes as a modality of hating myself, as like the means to which I expressed my self-hatred. It's like it was never about my actual eyes, it was about how I felt about myself that I used it through my eyes. And self-loathing comes from a different, like the source of it comes from so many different places. It's not just one thing. I feel like I use my body, and I still do, to look at myself and pinpoint all the things I hate about myself. But like what I've learned now is that the way that you feel about your body rarely has to do with your body, and that goes with anything on your physical vessel. The way you feel about your eyes, the way you feel about your nose rarely has to do actually with your nose. It was someone else or someone else's ideas or projections or society's beliefs that made you feel insecure about yourself. For me, like I have always been, as a Korean American, since I was like born, I've always been told to get plastic surgery. I had my parents flat out, like my dad just dead look at me in the eye and said, you know you're ugly, right? Being constantly offered double eyelid surgery, nose surgery, all of these different types of surgery for every single birthday, for every single milestone. There's such a cultural norm in Korea to surgically alter your face to look like this one face. And that's why so many Koreans look the same now, at least the ones that are public facing, like they are in the public eye. And there's no individuality in the way that they look. And these are natural. My eyes are natural. My nose bridge, or my lack of nose bridge, it's natural. And it's like, I was made to feel a certain way about the way I look. And so I was even told to wear makeup early on by my parents because they thought my eyes were so ugly. And it's actually really sad because like the first time I ever met Diego, who was like an aspiring makeup artist back then, which was like 4 years ago, Diego was like, let me do your makeup. And they did this. Diego is non-binary, so pronouns are they, them. I would really appreciate if we could honor that in this space. But they came over when this was probably the first time Diego ever came over, and Diego did this beautiful gold monolid makeup look with no eyeliner, just mascara, and we had to go out to the grocery store to you know, make our dinner. And I'd never gone out with just monolid makeup, and I was so uncomfortable. I felt so ugly, felt so like just crawling in my own skin. I was so uncomfortable, but because I enjoyed Diego so much and I didn't want to offend Diego's like makeup style and let my own insecurities and my own self-loathing get in the way of our spending time together, I went to the Rouse with that makeup on, and I remember feeling like so just like, everyone's seeing how ugly I am, I don't know how I look, like this is not my thing. And I never told Diego any of that, and we went home and we just cooked, and that was it. And it was only until about 1.5 years later that I had explained to Diego how I had truly felt about that makeup look, and how it was nothing on their makeup skills, it was always about just me and my self-loathing. And I remember specifically I had a friend back then with Diego say, oh, you know, you don't always have to wear really thick liner, like why don't you try just shadow or just eyeliner? And I was like, no, like absolutely not, like I could never do that. And it was because I thought I was so ugly and I hated myself so much that I thought I could never ever look that way. And you can see this a lot as kids, like when we just like become more and more comfortable in our own skin, a lot of us like pack on the makeup when we're young because we like hate the vessel we're in and we hate ourselves. It's not really the vessel that we hate, it's just ourselves that we hate. And as you get older, you become more and more comfortable in your skin, and I do believe it's because you are becoming more authentic and you are healing yourself. You're healing the parts of you that were bullied or were made to feel small or were made to feel insecure. And so I remember just thinking like, I will never ever wear just, you know, eyeshadow or just eyeliner. Like I have to do both. And now when I look back on photos of what I look like, and this is still almost just in 2017, when I look back at this, like I just like want to give myself a huge hug and say like, it's not your eyelids that are ugly, like it's the way that you see yourself that's the issue. Like it's your eyes aren't the problem and the nose bridge isn't the problem. And I think that's why like I have such a interesting perspective on plastic surgery. And anyone who tells you that they love themselves so they go get themselves fixed is inherently unconscious to the ways in which they've been beat down or made to feel small. And what I mean by that is like you see a lot of people with like plastic surgery addictions, right? Like people just like altering their nose, their face. And yes, like I'm sure at some point, if that really is going to fix all your self-loathing and your self-perception, go for it. But the thing is, that is never the case. Your looks alone can never be the panacea to the ways that you feel about yourself, all the chaos inside. It's like the glasses I'm wearing that's the issue. It's not my lips or my eyes. It's so similar to the movie I Feel Pretty, which is starring Amy Schumer. And I honestly really like that movie. I thought its message was something I completely resonated with. It's like she gets hit on her head and nothing physically changes about herself, just the way she sees herself changes, and all of her external reality changes because of her internal reality. And I think it's such a powerful message. It's not about, I think like the most dystopian kind of job that we have, which is ironic that it is so praised in society, is modeling. It's like, it's also why so many models have such short careers, because there's really an expiration date on external beauty and what we perceive as external beauty. Sorry, not external beauty itself, because I'm saying external beauty that we as a society have been programmed to see and think about. Models are some of the most unhappy people. Models have an entire self-worth and complex designed around this vessel that, mind you, goes to die and wither when you die, but your soul and your spirit and your legacy do not. They are forever. So plastic surgery, it's like, oh, if I fix my eyes, if I fix my boobs, like, then I will be pretty, or then I will love myself. But it's not that at all. And think about where that stems from the need to kind of do things like to alter your face. It's never out of self-love. It's always out of a low vibration of shame or guilt, or made to feel terrible about the way you look. And I have contemplated all throughout my life. Of course, I would be dishonest if I said that I didn't use the double eyelid tape that my mom made me buy in Korea. If I didn't Google double eyelid surgery. But I think like the logical and the intellectual part of me knew that like that's not the fix. Like even if I got my eyes done, I still feel like I would hate myself. And that's pretty much true, because I think I saw even like Nikita Dragon's video, and she says that she has gotten every surgery done, and she thought that, oh, if I did this surgery, I would be more of a woman, I would love myself more. And then she realized it's not about the surgeries, because the more and more she did all of the surgeries under the sun, apparently, according to her, and yet she still like felt so unworthy. And so I encourage you to really explore the reasoning of why you want to get what you want to get done. If it was a cure to all of your internal chaos and then your anxiety and your depression, I think that's what people think is mainly. It was like, oh, this is if I'm skinnier, if I had clear skin, if I did all this. But the thing is, I think one of the saddest parts, but also the most liberating parts of life, is getting what you thought you wanted and then realizing it's not what you wanted at all. It's like thinking that success, money, fame, and power will kind of, and like abiding by traditional standards of beauty will bring you happiness and joy. But actually, those are the things that when you get them, they kind of just amplify what's already wrong with you inside. Meaning that if you deal with insecurity, if you deal with self-loathing, which is what all of us do, it's a spectrum, you know, like there are people who absolutely hate themselves and there are people who are not even aware of that, right? And so it kind of just amplifies and intensifies that. And we see that with so many successful people who are so deeply unhappy with themselves, and how fame can really, really take a toll on the psyche, and why we see so many child stars end up in so many different places, and it's just really disheartening to see. And so I feel like self-loathing manifests in this like extreme need and necessity for external validation, whether that's fame, money, power, or good looks. Those things can never and will never be the solution to which that can only be solved internally. So you might ask me, like, how do I solve this all internally? It's not easy, because when you are healing yourself and your self-loathing, it is deep unpacking. It is shadow work, inner work. It's what I call healing the inner child. And it's basically giving yourself and meeting your needs that were all unmet as a child. And it's this, even your self-loathing, it shows up in all areas of your life, in your career, your love life. I think I saw this on The Holistic Psychologist, and it said, you do not have relationship problems. You have problems that were developed in your early childhood, disguising themselves as relationship problems. I think I saw this on TikTok. It's like, I don't have daddy issues. I had a dad that left me with issues. And so the way I like to reframe it is mother wound or father wound. And we all have, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing with attachment styles, like how we were treated as a kid shows up in our love lives. And if you want to watch that video, it's called Why Love is Hard, Attachment Styles. And for a long time, I was not securely attached. I was super dismissive and avoidant, and that was because I had a lot of unmet needs. Yeah, unmet needs when I was a child. I think it's really easy to think about how, my mom's mom had diabetes, and my mom's mom's had diabetes, and my dad's dad had heart disease and cardiovascular disease. And in that same way, emotional kind of genetics get passed down to us. It's like the reason why many of us become harmful parents is because a lot of us were not parented the same way, or the right way, sorry. And what I mean by that is like, a lot of times we feel so personally victimized by the way we've been treated that we feel deserving of this self-loathing. But the thing is, the reason why you hate yourself is because someone else felt that way about themselves and passed it on or projected it onto you. So a lot of times why we have anxiety and depression is because all of those emotional issues and wounds were passed down. If they are not healed, they get passed down. And the reason why internal work and shadow work and healing yourself is such tiring work is because when you heal yourself, you heal your mother and you heal your mother's mother. You heal all of that because you are, one, breaking the cycle, and two, you are not passing it down. I think this is really hard for me to kind of unpack as well, because I feel very disconnected to my lineage and my heritage, because in Korean culture, I think it's very taboo to talk about your trauma and your issues. And there's so much migrant trauma in the Korean American identity. It's like my parents came here, my dad came here when he was 26 and my mom came here when she was 11. And there's so much trauma in just that experience that isn't talked about. And my mom doesn't even tell me about her dating life and stuff like that. And I think something that I've learned is when people don't talk about it, it's because there is some level of kind of hiding that they need to do. So when people want to hide things or lie or deceive, it's because there's a negative emotion typically around that. So shame, guilt, embarrassment, just a number of different things. And so as I got older, I realized like, oh, maybe they're not talking about it because it wasn't a happy experience, which is like very much so valid. And I noticed myself kind of passing it down in unconscious ways, because that's just how we're programmed. Because when we're kids, we are so receptive to everything. Our cognitive development is just happening rapidly. Everything we know today is because of something that happened in childhood. Like the reason why you treat someone unkindly or kindly is either a programming of someone else's or a deprogramming of conscious thoughts. The best way I like to frame this is tabula rasa, so blank slate, right? And this is about, I think it's first by Aristotle? I don't know, I'm gonna have to recheck. It's the idea that when you enter this world, you enter as a blank state, and that your mind has nothing in it. And through life, basically nurture, so much of our programming gets downloaded. But then it's only through awareness can we really heal that. So I think something that my therapist says is like, I said I always feel weak for feeling self-loathing, like I feel really weak, and she's like, no, like you are powerful for even being able to step outside of it and to really think about it, to really critically analyze, because the way that you feel about your body rarely has to do with your body. Eating disorders are mental disorders, and I have a whole video on why I hate my body. We live in a very oppressive society where the color of your skin, your weight, your gender, all of that has you barred from certain opportunities and institutions, and it takes a lot of strength and resilience to kind of say no to all of that. And I want to be clear that self-loathing is just a human's adaptive response to the trauma or the negative experiences that they've dealt with. And it's like, how can you go through this whole life without hating your gayness or your queerness when we live in a world that literally oppresses or marginalizes an entire community of that identity? And it's like, you are not weak, this is like simply a response to all the cruelty and the harshness of this world that we live in. I think when you think about your internalized homophobia, your internalized misogyny, all of these things, internalized racism or even overt racism and homophobia, really think about if that's like in alignment with your true identity, or is that something that was passed down to you? And I think that this is institutionalized, this is systemic, and that's why it's so hard to really undo all of these things. But you don't come into this world hating yourself. Oh my gosh, I saw this beautiful kind of depiction of what this is. It's like, you know those giant balls that expand? They're plastic and they're a kid's toy, and they're made of all these little parts. I'm gonna throw up a picture if I can find it. But basically, all of those parts are what is downloaded to us in early development. You know, like maybe anti-blackness, like homophobia, hating your body, or feeling like you need to emotionally repress every part of you as a man, to not talk about your feelings, to feel strength, which is, you know, emotional unavailability. All of those things are getting passed down to us, and it's only through our own critical analysis that we can break things apart, and then you start to see that these are just pieces of yourself that were downloaded from other people, passed on to you from generations, a lineage of folk, and you can pick and choose from there what it is that is actually true to your identity. I think that we think like self-loathing comes from like one big act or one big experience, but trauma is on a spectrum. The only person that can identify or categorize what trauma is the person that experienced it. So someone can't say to you like that wasn't a traumatic experience. The one that was experienced it is the one, because it's all relative and we're all on a spectrum, and it can be as big as sexual assault, it can be as small as someone saying you're ugly in the 2nd grade, it can be someone being passive aggressive. It's still things that are passed down to us and projected onto us to make us feel a certain way about ourselves. It's only actually this past year that I had identified that I had been bullied a good majority of my life by my female best friends, and how I had always accepted that as the norm because a number of different reasons of like my self-loathing, of my mother wound, of a lot of just women and female friends that were like, I think like in 2nd grade, my best friend made an entire Zanga of me and copied everything. I don't know how she did the coding, but it was such a traumatic experience because I had never felt more and more hated in my entire life. It was like my entire Zanga, but all of it was changed to like stupid bitch. I am this da da da. It was like full of hatred. It was like my Zanga, but like the blog posts were all edited. I don't know how she did it. And like my mom never got involved in a lot of the things that went on at school, but that is one time where I remember she like called up that my ex-best friend's mom and just like cussed her out. She was like, this is unacceptable. I was 8 years old, and for a long time I had believed that I deserved that and that I was deserving of that. And that's a lot of how my self-loathing got not only magnified, but how I started to identify that like I am a bad person, I deserve this. And that also shows up in other events where I was molested when I was 4. I was 4 years old at the time that I experienced it, and then it was, I think like maybe I was like 6 or 7 or 8 that when I had talked about it and told someone out of, you know, just hoping to feel seen and heard. And I was totally dismissed and invalidated, and I had never talked about that moment until I went to therapy. And it is like in those really traumatic experiences that I had reinforced and also adopted this narrative that I am deserving of my self-loathing. It's like those are the experiences that said I should hate myself, and I started to hate myself, and also reinforced and perpetuated this cycle and harmful cycle of self-loathing. And I wish I could go back and say like, you didn't deserve any of that. You are just a victim of your experiences, and that's not your fault. It is super unfortunate that you went through all of that, and just know that you're not deserving of it. And I want to say that if you are dealing with anything, with, you know, abuse, with toxic best friends, with anyone, I highly encourage you to just give yourself a hug. You know, we all mess up, we all make mistakes, and I think the most important thing is to grow from that and learn from that and learn to be better people, but also to understand that no matter how terrible you are of a person, you're not deserving of feeling like you shouldn't be here on planet Earth. Like, we are all here on planet Earth for a reason, a very divine and exquisite reason. I truly believe that. I think one time Comey actually got a really bad haircut, and my whole life I've been told objectively, like factually, that I am ugly. Like, it's like not even like it's like, oh, you know you're ugly, right? Like, I just want you to know that you know your like this harsh truth about who you are kind of thing. And I remember Komi got a really bad haircut. Like, it was probably the worst haircut she's ever gotten. I have like a video of it on her Instagram. I'm gonna post it up right now. It was like objectively a really ugly haircut. But I remember when I was living with my brother, I said like, oh, you little ugly thing, like it's okay to be ugly though, like oh da da, and I was like petting her like that, and my brother was like, why are you talking to your dog like that? That's so mean and like abusive. Like, why are you talking down to her like that? It's like, she's just a haircut and she's still beautiful. Like, it has nothing to do with like how cute she is inside and stuff. And I was like, he basically just checked me, and I was shocked because I was like, I had never questioned my talking of her like that, because I had always been talked down to like that as a kid. And it also, you also know that something doesn't feel right when you act a certain way because you feel bad about it. Like, I genuinely felt bad about it. Like, it's like, yes, like that's how I was treated, but it always made me feel bad about it. So why was I like doing that to someone else or doing that to my dog? And it's even in that way that I was passing down my own self-loathing, you know? Like, it was like, oh, I was treated this way, so I'm gonna pass it down to you. I remember like sometime last year, I don't know, this is like, whatever, it's gonna be, I'm being super honest. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just being really real. I saw a girl walk down the street and I was like, oh, like I would hate her body if I had that body. And then I checked myself and I said, well, girl, well, bitch, I actually said bitch, but also don't call yourself bitch, because the way you talk to yourself really has a lot to do with just everything. But I said, well, bitch, guess what? You don't even have her body and you still hate yourself. So joke's on you. And I was like, oh my God. It's only in self-awareness that you can really check how problematic you are and how much healing and how much trauma you have to unpack and to heal. So what I'm trying to tell you is, next time you hear that inner critic in your voice, challenge where it came from, because it is not your original voice. You think it's your original voice, but it's not. The way that you feel about your body, your height, your skin color, your acne, all of these things are ideas that were already set in place and just like shoved into you in a way. And it takes a lot of strength to like be like, no, I don't identify. And I think the older I get, the more and more happy I am that I didn't get that eyelid surgery. And on the worst days where I feel so terrible and so full of self-loathing, I just use my eyelids and use my body as like a means of self-loathing. Like, I am like, your arm is fat, your eyes are like not pretty, you are the ugliest person on planet Earth. But it's not actually because of my eyes or my body that I hate myself. It's like, I hate myself, and then I use all of those things to kind of just shit on myself even more. This is one of my favorite lipstick combos. It's a very 90s matte nude burgundy look, and it's both from Gucci because I'm a bougie hoe. This is Tracy Hazel. I think Tracy Hazel, but it's like really dark. I just put a little bit. And then I use this Carol Beige, which is like a really nude color. It's like brown. I'm gonna do a small little flick at the end. The more internal work I do, the more my external reality shifts and changes. And I used to work out a lot more. I used to do high intensity interval training. I think that's what it's called, HIIT, like berries, where you burn 1,000 calories. And I had never hated myself more. My body was way more fit back then, and it was way more in shape, but it was probably the lowest vibration I had ever been in, because I had used my body as a means of expressing my self-loathing. I policed the way I ate. I worked out very intensely, very crazily. Now I am not nearly as fit or toned, but I am definitely a lot more loving towards myself. I'm a lot more compassionate, a lot more gentle with myself. I think this is the most, I still hate myself a lot. Because there's so much. It took me 26 years to hate myself. It's gonna take the same amount, if not more, to undo all of that. Like, self-love does just not come from an Instagram quote or a motivational podcast. It comes from years years and years of work and intentionality. Intention? Intention. I don't know. Today I really wanted to do this makeup look because I wanted to do like in celebration of me. I think during this pandemic, I was like telling Diego, I am ready to wear no makeup, no eye makeup besides like eyeshadow and maybe a little mascara and just wear my monolids. And it's so crazy because like so many of the things I hated myself for example, my appearance and my intellect. My intellect was also another way I really use self-loathing, like constantly telling myself dumb because I had been told I was dumb my entire life. And then I think it's weird now that these two things that I am most insecure about or the most self-loathing about, I have made kind of like a career out of. Like, I don't know, it's like weird that I'm like in a beauty and fashion industry and I'm talking about like the things I know when I always felt like I was super fucking ugly and super fucking like worthless in my appearance, and then also really dumb. And I still am so insecure about a lot of my intellect, and I think one of my biggest fears is on the internet is like talking about something I don't know, and I think that's why I heavily research everything I talk about. And at the same time, I'm super open-minded to being wrong. Like, please educate me when I'm wrong or I'm being ignorant. So I just hope that today you could have a big perspective shift on why you hate yourself and why that's not something that to be ashamed of. It is super powerful and authentic to kind of reclaim your self-loathing, because only from there and true healing can we really love ourselves, and not love ourselves for our looks, our intellect. It's literally loving ourselves from an eternal source that can never be taken from us. And what that really means, I'm still trying to figure out. I know, so, but anyways, know that your trauma, your baggage, your abuse, all of your negative experiences were not your fault, and you were not deserving of that, but they did happen to you, and you are responsible for your own healing and for not passing that on to your kids and your friends and your peers. You are not your trauma. You are not your negative experiences. You are a powerful being, and I love you so much. And thank you so much for holding space for me today. I know I talked about a lot, and thank you for allowing me to hold space for you. Also, I wanted to really quickly mention that I'm going to be doing a workshop on Seen and Safe, which is my platform or community that is just all about feeling seen and heard and feeling seen and safe. And for Happy Mental Health Awareness Month and Asian American Pacific Islander Month, I believe. So I did a virtual workshop last time, and I will call it more of like a healing circle, where I set the stage up for really heavy unpacking and certain questions, and we're here to all hold space for each other and talk about our experiences. And whether or not you participate, it is an incredibly moving and powerful experience to just be in that type of space. Just as someone who has been a part of a lot of healing circles and has been going to a lot of different workshops, whether or not I participate actively, I still come away with it with something very thought-provoking and powerful and significant to my own development. So I will be doing another virtual workshop on May 26th, and be sure to follow Seen and Safe. And basically what Seen and Safe is a place where we'll be doing in-person healing circles, virtual healing circles, and it's just a space where all of this stuff that I just talked about is okay. I think we see you, it's safe to be who you are, and that's something that I really needed growing up. I'm such an emotional wreck, but it's okay. No, I'm an emotional wreck, and it's okay, not but. But anyways, it's what I needed when I was growing up. And so anyways, so be sure to follow there, and I'll have more details on the next Healing Circle virtual workshop down below. But anyways, I love you so much. You are a divine spark of the universe, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!